So, Bill, you've recently appointed a women's worker at Emmanuel Church in Leamington. Can you tell us something about how you came to that point?
Yeah, well, over the years, my wife Sharon looked after women's ministry at Emmanuel, and that involved both the pastoral care of individual women and also running and organising the women's programme. As the church grew and developed, she set up a women's ministry team, and she led that team, and that operated very well. But then there came a point where she had to draw back from her commitments at Emmanuel because she was involved in ministries outside the church, specifically the Coalition for Marriage, and now she works full-time for Christian Institute. And it was when Sharon stepped back that we realised how large was the void that she left behind. We realised how much was going on in terms of women's ministries, and particularly pastoral work amongst women behind the scenes. And so at that point we came to realise that we needed a women's worker. There was a particular pinch point with some urgent pastoral situations where I really felt the need of a woman in the church to come alongside a needy individual. And I didn't feel able to ask any individual woman in the congregation to help with that because many of them are already busy with their own ministries, their own families and their own employment. So we really needed to appoint a women's worker.
So how did you actually go about making that appointment?
The first thing we had to do was to set up a job description. And then we discussed whether we should advertise the post, either externally or internally. In our case at Emmanuel, the appointment was very straightforward because the Lord had already been raising up Leo, one of our church administrators, to fill that position. When Sharon asked someone else to take over the women's ministry team at Emmanuel, that woman was Leo. And in Sharon's absence, Leo developed the women's ministry team in a wonderful way. And she had a real vision for the work. She'd had an increasing burden over a number of years for the importance of women's ministry and indeed her vocation in that area. And she'd also been receiving some training. She'd been doing the Midlands Ministry training course. And so she was not only gifted, but in a real sense she was equipped to do that work. So by the time we came to appointment, it was just a case of recognising the ministry that Leo had already taken on.
Mm. Were there any particular practical issues that you faced in that time?
Yeah, there were a couple of practical issues. We had one major concern that the appointment of a women's worker wouldn't send a message to all of the other women in the congregation that you can all relax now because women's work will be looked after by the women's worker. Quite on the contrary, we wanted to emphasise that the main role of the women's worker was to motivate and mobilise all the women of the church and to encourage them all to be involved in ministry, to identify their gifts, to direct them towards future teaching and training where appropriate. Our vision for women's ministry at Emmanuel is for all of the women of the church to be equipped for their responsibilities, either in the workplace or in the family or in the local church or in terms of being ready to give personal witness wherever they are. And so we wanted to give a vision that Leo's appointment was a positive thing for all the women and not a negative thing where they were going to be standing back. And then the second practical issue which we were concerned about was that we wanted to formalise our women's workers' appointment in a way that recognised her as an important member of the pastoral team. And so getting it right in how she would relate to the other members of the pastoral team, and also very practically giving her a salary that was appropriate. And at this point it was very helpful to turn to you at FIEC and get your advice about what you thought might be appropriate, and you were able to find out something about what salary is given at other churches, and so we found that information very useful in making our decision.
Good. So Leo's now been undertaking this role for the last 6 months.
Yep.
What's that meant to the church at Emmanuel?
Oh, it's been tremendous. I mean, Leo's just been a tremendous blessing to us, and she's already done an enormous amount of work. And you can see Leo growing and developing in her confidence in the role, which is also a delight to see. She's supposed to work 20 hours a week. She's already working many hours more than that, and she's struggling to fit the work into the hours available. As so often happens, when you set someone apart for a certain sphere of ministry, they have such a focus on that area of ministry and such a vision for that ministry that the possibilities of women's ministry grow and develop in a very positive way. So we're very excited about what the Lord's doing, and we're very grateful for the way in which he's led us thus far, and we look to him for the future.
That's really encouraging. Thanks so much, Bill.